Okay, everyone, let's grab our seats. It's officially 8:30 p.m. My name's Ron. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome home. How's everybody doing? We're going to give a quick shout out to our YouTube specialist who's been posting these talks on YouTube. If you're not familiar with that, please look it up. We have now we're up 300,000 views or something like that. So our service has really been, it's out of control, and it's really beautiful about how recovery is contagious and people pass it on. So if you don't know where it is, look on our Facebook page or look on YouTube for our group and share that with other people. Subscribe, and you get to hear that. Sometimes, like last week, we had a snow blizzard. It was incredible. The speaker drove here 5.5 hours, and I got people that are a mile or two from the place, and they're like, "It's a little too snowy to come out, Ron." I'm like, "Our speaker just drove 5.5 hours. It was a powerful talk." And revisited. She did a great job. What else we got to do? I don't know. Is there anything else we're supposed to announce? So anyway, Brian's going to come up here. We've got the world's greatest chairperson. Let's welcome him. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian, and I'm an alcoholic. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a 1-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street in Doylestown, PA. The food and the fellowship for this group starts at 8 o'clock, and the speaker comes on at 8:30. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 o'clock to 7:30. Feel free to come early and join us. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teachings of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others can benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone that is new or visiting from out of town that would like to introduce themselves on a first name basis so that we can welcome you?
Mike, alcoholic.
Mike, welcome. Yeah, in the back.
I'm Dave, alcoholic.
Dave, welcome. Got it? We got everybody? Okay. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with a working knowledge of the 12 steps and who is willing to sponsor, please raise their hands. So if you are new, you're just coming around, we got a lot of people willing to sponsor here. Hang out with us after the meeting. We'd love to talk with you, get you into the solution a little bit. Are there any announcements from the floor for the good of AA? Nobody has anything? Okay, a couple quick announcements from this group. We have a sister group, which is a big book study meeting. It meets every Thursday at 7:30 right up the road here at Salem UCC Church. That's 186 East Court Street in Doylestown, PA. And again, the coffee for that meeting's on at 6:15, so feel free to show up early and join us. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs to help those who can't afford them can put their donations in that jar on the back table marked Big Book and CD donations. All CDs are available free of charge. Again, as Ron mentioned, we have a YouTube channel, Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown. We post speakers from this group on there. We also post speakers from a group we have on Monday here at 6 o'clock. It's a step meeting. We have speakers come in, half-hour speaker, and then a step discussion meeting. We also have a Facebook page, Conscious Contact Speaker Group. You can follow our Facebook page. We post the happenings for this group, the upcoming speakers we have, any events, workshop kind of things. Also, a lot of groups in the area will post things of that nature, anniversaries and stuff they have going on. So it's a good resource to have if you want to stay tied in with happenings throughout the area regarding AA. And with that, I believe Dave is going to come up here. He's going to read our Just For Today prayer.
My name is Dave. I'm an alcoholic. Just for today, prayer of recovery. Just for today, I will be agreeable. I will look as well as I can, dress becomingly, talk low, act courteously, criticize not one bit, not find fault with anything, and not try to improve or regulate anybody except myself. And now we will bring up Kara for the 12 steps. Or preamble.
Hello everybody, my name is Kara and I am alcoholic. Welcome home everybody. The AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses or opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And with that, I'd like to ask JJ to come up and read our 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Hello everyone, my name is JJ, I'm an alcoholic. The 12 steps of recovery. First, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Second, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Third, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Fourth, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Fifth, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Sixth, we are entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Seventh, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Eighth, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12th, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. And with that, Brian will come up and introduce our speaker.
Okay, also forgot to mention, on stage left here, we have our hoodies on display, so if you're interested in getting yourself some CCSG swag, again, you can see me or Ron or any home group member after the meeting. We're available for a charitable donation. We have a 7 tradition. Every A group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, we'll see that the basket makes its way around. Again, there's no dues or fees for AA membership, but we do have expenses. Your contributions do help us to cover the cost of food, rent, big books, workshops, CDs, and things of that nature, so we do appreciate it. There's absolutely no smoking on the church property. It's the church's policy. Just be considerate of that as you're coming and going from the meeting. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. And now to introduce our speaker for tonight, a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group, visiting from New Jersey. Please help me welcome Jordan Kay.
How you doing, guys? My name's Jordan. I'm an alcoholic. Bear with me a little bit just with the standing up and the microphone. May take me a couple minutes to ease in with you guys. I thank you. Thank you very much for your service. Ron, thank you for having me. As always, you ask, I'll be here. It's an honor and a privilege to do service in Alcoholics Anonymous. My sobriety date is May 16, 2011. So, I had about an hour and 45 minutes of a drive up here, just kind of in a little bit of reflection on the last year, but really just my entire journey up until this point. And, a lot of the things that have changed since the last time I had the honor and the privilege of being up here at the Conscious Contact Group, and this is a great group. What a wonderful meeting, and I'm always reminded on the importance of being of service in Alcoholics Anonymous. When I'm up here, I'm required to be in a suit. Normally have a tie, but I couldn't get it to fit on before I came in here, so bear with me there. I am from South Jersey. Don't hold that against me while I'm up here. My training teaches me to talk a little bit about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And that's what we'll do. I'm from Berlin, New Jersey, if any of you guys know where that is. Berlin, Voorhees, Cherry Hill, that whole general area. A lot of people talk about being alcoholic way before they ever came in contact with alcohol, and I relate to that a lot. I relate to the feelings of not fitting in, of not being good enough, of feeling like I didn't belong. But I did have a great childhood. I had a mother and father who loved me dearly. I had a great upbringing. I had most of anything that a little boy could want, and all of which I needed growing up, and very fortunate for that. And I'll fast forward to when I was about in middle school. It was the first encounter that I ever had with alcohol when I was about, I think, 12 years old. And I didn't have like a slow, steady alcoholic progression like a lot of people talk about. Mine was rapid, injurious, it was fast, and consequential, and it all came very quick. I remember my first drink when I was 12, slowly progressed into more heavy drinking by the time I was 13, 14. By the time I was 15, I had experienced a lot of consequences, like early on in high school, a lot of arrests. I was never an alcoholic that got away with a lot. I was normally like pulled over, handcuffs, arrested, court. It all just kind of like went together. I went to my first treatment center, court order, when I was 16 years old. It was like a adolescent treatment center up in over in Princeton, New Jersey, if any of you guys know where that is. So I remember it was like finger painting for alcoholics. It was like kind of like a joke. I was in there with other adolescents, some older kids, some younger kids. It was like a big joke, and at least that's how I took it. And that was my first real introduction to being around anything that was a better life, one outside of drinking, and anything to do with sobriety. And I remember this was still around that point in time where I thought that, and if you're from the Northeast, maybe you grew up with alcoholism at an early age, but I really thought that New Jersey was a big part of my problem. I thought that if I could just get out of New Jersey, I could go anywhere else, I could be something else, and that, maybe a geographical change would really change my problem. And I remember I did pretty well in my sophomore, junior year of high school, even while drinking had consumed my life at the proportions that it did. I remember I got into a really good Division I school down in North Carolina, and that's all I really wanted to do since I was a kid. I was obsessed with Michael Jordan in North Carolina. I didn't get into UNC Chapel Hill, but I did get into a really good school down in North Carolina. And I think I found out that I got in there in my junior year of high school. And the way that I responded to that acceptance, you would have thought that I had already gone down to college, graduated, summa cum laude, head of my class, because I disappeared from high school just like that. I remember my senior year of high school, I had to get 86 doctor's notes written for me in order to graduate high school just by the skin of my teeth. I think they just pushed me through so they didn't have to see me for another year. I got my acceptance letter to college revoked. I remember I had to claim learning disability. I went down there on academic probation. I'd gotten in a bunch of trouble between my senior year and when I was going to enter into college. I went down there on 18 months probation in Camden County. They had allowed me, by God's grace, to go down and start my academic career down in North Carolina. And all these things were already happening and spiraling before I had even stepped foot on a college campus. And, my freshman year of college was a blur, and it was also a joke. Alcoholism was always around me. My college roommate is not here due to this disease. My freshman year, I think I completed my freshman year of college with a 0.9 GPA, and so if you guys know anything about grade point averages, if you don't know anything about grade point averages, a 0.9 GPA is not good. It's the opposite of good. And I don't know if I wasn't doing well or if they weren't doing well, because they allowed me to come back for a sophomore year. I guess my first interaction with insanity was really with them. I guess they were expecting a different result, allowing me to come back for a sophomore year. And I remember this was at a point in time where I was daily drinking, but this was also the first period of time where I had ever experienced alcohol not working for me as it always did. Childhood friend of mine, his name was John, and another buddy of mine, his name was Mark. They passed away within a couple months of each other, and these were kids that I grew up with, that I rode bikes with, that I played seat yard basketball with, that our backyards backed up to each other. Just people that I wished were fortunate enough and lucky enough to have the opportunity that I gotten to experience a different way of living. And I remember at this point in time, I was, I could tell you what my life looked like in like 2 seconds. It was drinking, sitting on the couch, and watching the first 48. And that was my life in a nutshell. And I had, I had gone to school for communications and marketing. I got, I always tell people that I left that school a criminal justice major because I had seen so many episodes of the first 48, and I was so drunk and delusional at this point in time that I was like a full-blown detective the way that I thought. I crashed the car. I got arrested a few times in Guilford County, and I was not like a tough get arrested, go to jail guy. I was like a scared, but I'm always arrested and I'm afraid, and like give me an opportunity to get out of jail and I'll take it guy. I remember the dean of my school linked up with my mother and my father. They came down to North Carolina. They had like a mini intervention on me. I think I was 18, maybe 19 tops at the time. It was the first time I entered into my first treatment center, like a real private treatment center in South Florida. They sent me to a place in Port St. Lucie. And it was night and day in comparison to the introduction that I had received when I was 16 years old. It was, real high-class therapy, individualized caseloads, like people who really took the time to get to know me, what I had been through, what brought me there. Very fortunate to have the opportunity that I did at that point in time. But there's a difference between willingness and complete willingness, and I found that out the hard way through this experience. I was like, treatment president. I was doing my little say goodbye letter to drugs and my Hanley packets, my step 1, 2, and 3. I'm crying. I'm blaming things on my dad. I'm class president. I don't have a degree from college, but I'm sending home my completion from a treatment center. Like, hang that on the fridge, Mom. Model son that I was at the time. And I remember about maybe 30 to 45 days in, they started talking to me about going to a sober living. I think they called it a halfway house at the time. Growing up in South Jersey, the only thing that I knew about halfway houses was it was normally kind of a place that you went to when you were getting paroled from a prison. At least that's how I thought about it. So I could only imagine, and this is where just like fear dictated and determined every action and every decision that I made. It's, I'm afraid of this, that makes me uncomfortable, I'm not doing this, and here's how I'm going to justify it. It was the first time that I also encountered not drinking, where not taking suggestions, not taking recommendations, where that got me and how quick that gets me back to drinking. And that's where I really think that, admitted we were powerless over alcohol, I probably could have gotten down with that idea when I was like 16 years old. I knew I had a problem with drinking, but me not managing my own life by myself, for myself, was the second part of the first step that I had not surrendered yet. And my last day in that treatment center, I went home, back to Berlin, didn't take the opportunity to go to a sober living. I made it seem like my mother and father really needed me around. And I remember I had a conversation with my dad when I walked in. I guess he didn't want to burden me with it while I was in treatment, that him and my mother were getting a divorce and going their separate ways. And, it's not my job to classify anybody else as an alcoholic. It's not something that I can do for anybody other than myself. I will tell you that, my mother was always a daily drinker. My mother still drinks to this day. My father was doing whatever he was doing upstairs. My mother was in the basement doing what she was doing downstairs, and that has nothing to do with what I did. What I did is I came home to a situation that I shouldn't have been in to begin with, and I took the first justifiable excuse that I can make up in my mind to go do the only thing that I knew how to do, which was drink at the time, and that's where I was. I remember 6, 7, 8 months later, I'm kind of built like an 8th grade girl as it is, and I ended up, so you can imagine what I looked like, 8 months of drinking. I ended up back in the same treatment center I had just come from, and this time I didn't have anywhere to go. I went down to a sober living in Delray Beach, Florida at the time, and it was a really, really great experience. Because at sober living, they instill a lot of really great things in you. Structure, accountability, there's just rules, regulations. They teach you how to grow up, get a job, start paying your way. Just like a lot of things that I had started drinking so young that I missed a lot of the experiences of growing up, taking responsibility for your life and becoming a man. All things that are contained in the sobriety process, whether you're a man or a woman. But I really got to experience a lot of really great things. I met a lot of really great people, but I still just was not. I just was not beaten into a state of reasonableness yet. I just wasn't completely done. I wanted to be. I had experiences that I really thought that now could be the time, and I just wasn't done yet. I remember, talk about managing my own life left up to me, even when I'm sober. I broke a lot of rules at this place. I was 20, 21 at the time. I couldn't follow along with curfew. I didn't make my bed. I wouldn't clean up trash. I was just like a punk kid at the time. I remember they gave me, I think it was like 7 p.m. curfew for like another month. I had to pick up cigarette butts around the property. There was a slew of consequences that I had gotten for something, and it was either that or find a different place to live. And I remember this was all around the time that I had gotten a tax return. This was like beginning of the year when all this had happened. And like a good alcoholic that I am, I had to weigh certain things, like a roof over my head, a bed to sleep in, people around me who love and care about me, or like what appeared to be all this money that I could go live off the land with. And the type of alcoholic that I was at the time, and also the fact that I was like a young punk little kid, you give me 25 cents in my pocket and I think I'm rich, 50 cent in the club balling, throwing money with all these grandiose ideas of how I'm going to go wreak havoc on the world with like $150. And I made a conscious decision to go be, no pun intended, I made a conscious decision to go be homeless in South Florida. I did that for a period of time. Some of the loneliest days, loneliest nights, quietest moments, and most humbling experience that I had. You can find me off 20th Street in Boca, sleeping alongside of an empty pool in an abandoned condominium complex. Or off Lake Ida in Swinton, there was an old office building that had a deck behind it that I used to sleep on. Just a lot of really lonely places that I've been to when drinking was just paramount. Just more important than anything, more important than a roof over my head, more important than a phone call to my mother, a phone call to my father, more important than anything. Thinking back to those days, when things used to get rough for me down in Florida, I used to figure out a way to hitchhike it back up here to Jersey and come bother somebody that could bail me out of my problems. Normally it was my mom, or it was my dad, or it was my sister at the time. And I remember I showed up at my mother's doorstep, looking like Gumby. I could probably tie my shoes standing up. She would always just kind of be disgusted and feared up by the look of me, send me over to my father's house. I remember right before I got sober, there was, they had cooked up a whole thing. It was going to be, I was supposed to do a few days on my mom's couch, a few days on my dad's couch, and I remember they said it was that I needed to figure out what I was going to do with my life. I'll never forget they said that. And, if only it was that simple, right? I just had to figure it out. So I did. I stole everything that wasn't bolted to the floor at my dad's house, right? I was just figuring it out. And I got kicked out of there and I went over to my mother's. I will tell you that it's very easy to hurt others when you can't feel pain. And that's something that has always, always, always rung true to me. And I remember being at my mother's house for those few days, and it was, when you're in the darkest moments of your drinking and you're living around somebody who is just unfortunate enough to be near the tornado, it is a very, very, very sad setting to be in the household with somebody who is in the depths of their drinking to where I was. And that's where my mother's house was. It was dark, it was sad, like the freaking sink ran off tears, that's what it felt like being in there. And, my poor saint of a mother, she's seen it all in her day, and I truly believe that God intervened in my life in a moment and in an instance. And in the way that I was drinking, I think I had always assumed that I wasn't going to be here for very long after a certain point in time. And if you've ever really been to that, that depth of your drinking, I can definitely relate to that, and I understand that. I remember my mother walked in on me. I was in her bathroom, and the way that I was drinking at the time was just downright suicidal. And I remember she came home early from work, probably to check on me, because I never realized how many of those moments people went out of their way to make sure that I was okay, that I was alive, that I wasn't, dead in the house somewhere. She walked in on me, and I remember my mother just fell to her knees and just started crying like I'd never seen my mother crying before in my entire life. And in a split second, in an instance, it wasn't just that my mother was crying, it was just the fact that I cared about that my mother was crying. Alcohol, what it always did is it created this like icy blocker between you and your feelings about my drinking and me caring about your feelings about my drinking. It always did that. The minute I started drinking, I stopped caring, I stopped feeling, I stopped thinking about anybody other than myself. And in this moment, I just cared about what I was doing to my mother, and I cared about what I was doing with my life. My mother knows I get a little weird when I start drinking, so she kicked me out. She knows I'll sleep in a bush. I remember I started dialing. I had the Spider-Man edition phone. It was cracked from head to toe. So dialing wasn't like the easiest thing to do at this time. And I called every number that I had memorized known to man. I was blacklisted from a lot of treatment centers. I didn't have medical insurance at the time, even state-funded treatment centers in New Jersey that weren't taking me, because I just caused a lot of wreckage. I burned a lot of bridges. I disrespected a lot of opportunities. I was a young kid who didn't appreciate the things that people did for him at this point in time. I had a sober living that I had been to a few times prior down in Florida, and I knew the guy who owned the sober living. Great guy, not in AA, not in sobriety, just a business guy who cared about people in recovery. And I called and I got the manager of the property on the phone. Guy had been sober 35 years in AA, managed the entire sober living. It was a big place down in Delray at the time. And I remember with tears in my eyes, I called him and I said, "Hey, it's me. I don't know what to do, but I need to come back. Can I please come back?" And I'll never forget, he said, "I don't know what is the place for you, but this is not the place for you." And he hung up on me. A few hours later, I got a phone call from the guy who owned that sober living. I guess he had heard that I had called. By the grace of God, he had, I don't know what that was within him that made him willing to give me an opportunity, because it wasn't something that I deserved. It's just something that he obviously felt like I needed. And he called me and he asked if I could get to the airport. And I told him, yeah. And he said, "This is what time's your flight at?" He had bought me a flight before he had even called me. And I'll never forget, before he hung up the phone with me, he said, "If this time isn't different, if something isn't different this time, you and I are going to have to part ways as friends." And I'll never forget that he said that, because it was the first time that, this was like a 45-year-old man with a wife and kids. Like, we weren't friends. He didn't invite me over to watch Sunday Night Football. And it was the first time that somebody had even referred to me as a friend, that it just broke me up somewhere that I didn't even know existed anymore. Because I really related to Bill's story where he talks about the remonstrances of my friends terminated in a row when I became a lone wolf. I remember when I started drinking when I was 12, 13 years old, 14, partying with my friends, and it was fun, and there was people all around, and there was stuff going on. And then I remember it was like I went to a party when I was 14, and I woke up when I was 21, 22, and I lived outside, and I was looking around going, where did everybody go and what happened? I related to that moment in the book, where it was just at a certain point in time, my mother was gone, my father was gone, my sister was gone, and it was me drinking outside alone by myself against the world. And, I remember May 15th, I got a ride to the airport. I stayed at the airport overnight until my flight on the 16th. May 16th, 2011, I stepped foot back on the property. I remember they searched me. I sat down and I was looking at a property full of people newly in sobriety but had a lot more time and a lot more things going on than I did. And I got dropped off there, and I'll never forget, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And that's what happened May 16th. 2011, there was this guy that I was in a sober living with a few times prior, And when I was in my sober living, he got moved into our house. He was living in a tent behind a Publix in Florida before he moved into my sober living. This guy was nuts. He was bald. He was missing half his teeth. He moved in. He had a trash bag, a pair of purple shoes, and a pair of red shoes. This was the day I met this guy. And on May 16, 2011, I look up. I was sitting on the curb in a parking lot, looking at a parking lot full of people that I just absolutely hated. Because that's just how I was. I hated myself, I hated my life, and in turn, I just despised anybody else who had more than me. And I'll never forget, I looked up from this curb that I was sitting on, and there was this guy just across the parking lot. But he had some size on him, he had some color in him, he had teeth. I don't even know where he got teeth from, because he didn't have teeth when I first met him. He was still bald, he hadn't fixed that, but he was across the parking lot, and he was laughing with somebody. And I'll never forget, he looked across the parking lot, and he locked eyes, and he just saw me standing there. And I was obviously a sad sight at this point in time. And I'll never forget, he started walking towards me, and he just started laughing, and he started dying laughing at the sight of me. And I'll never forget, he sat down to the right of me, and he gave me a hug. And I'll never forget, May 16, 2011, he sat down next to me, gave me a hug, and he told me that everything was going to be okay. And the minute that he told me that everything was going to be okay, I cried. I cried like I had never cried before in my entire life. It was just the exact words that I needed at the exact moment that I needed it. And I didn't know if I was getting ready to run, or if I was getting ready to stay, or if I was getting ready to break, and it all just hit me right there in that moment. And I'll never forget, May 16, 2011, I took a first step. I didn't even know that I had just taken a first step, because he let me up from that hug because he didn't want anyone to see me cry, so he kept hugging me. And the minute that he let me up, the only words out of my mouth was, "I don't know what to do. Please tell me what to do." And that was it, right there. I didn't even ask him to be my sponsor. He knew he was my sponsor. I knew he was my sponsor. I didn't even have to say the words. And I'll never forget, right away he responded. He said, "Are you willing to call me every day?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Are you willing to take some simple suggestions as clear-cut direction?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Are you willing to, not if I take you through the 12 Steps to Alcoholics Anonymous, but when I take you through the 12 Steps to Alcoholics Anonymous, are you willing to take other men through the steps?" And I said, "Yes." And that moment of my story means a lot to me, because it's the first time that I can ever remember verbally agreeing to do something with somebody that I followed through and upheld with action. And that was the first time that I ever had that experience of what it was like to be a man of integrity, a man of honor, a man whose actions match his words. And it was the first time that I ever really, really, really can remember having an experience like that. The first moment of my life where I really started growing up, because that's what sobriety is all about to me. It's all about growing up. And I've been through a lot since that point in time. I remember we sat down, and step 1, step 2, and step 3 go hand in hand, at least for me and where I come from. And there's no finish line to any of these steps. These are steps that I practice every day. That admission to myself, that admission to my innermost self that I'm an alcoholic is something that I could have gotten down with, like I said, when I was a really young kid. But at that point in time, I knew it. I knew it in my core. But making an agreement to not manage my own life by myself anymore and hiring a sponsor is something that I did on May 16, 2011. Coming to believe in a power greater than myself that could restore me to sanity. Coming to believe is not something for me that just immediately happened. It's been a journey. It's definitely something that more the educational variety for me. It was slow, it was steady, it was progressive, but it happened for me through the process. Made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood Him. My first real experience with the third step prayer was taken with my sponsor, and it was the first time that I ever felt like everything was going to be okay. And I remember him having a conversation with me about having a new employer and signing my name on the imaginary dotted line of all the people, places, things, circumstances, all the things that are out of my control, and turning those things over before the day begins, and signing my name on that imaginary dotted line that God is in control. Everything that is supposed to be will be, and I don't have to stress or worry about it. What I do need to focus on is my actions, my attitude, my behavior, and my responses to those things. And that's what I started working on, making a searching and fearless moral inventory of myself. I'll never forget when I called my sponsor. When I had to memorize the third step prayer, and then he moved me on to my fourth step. And the way that I memorized the third step prayer was by saying the third step prayer every single morning when I woke up. prayer I still say to this day. One of the most important things to me that I've picked up in my life with prayer has been that third step prayer. And it's got me through some of the toughest moments. Making a search and fearless moral inventory of myself. I never forget, I called my sponsor. He had me go out, get a notebook, get a pen, and I called him. I said, what do I do? He said, okay, I want you to write the word names at the top of this page. I said, okay, I'm ready. He said, I want you to write a list of names of everybody that you've ever met before in your entire life. I almost hung up the phone on him. And he just said, what's more honest and thorough than that? And I remember after I got done doing my 4-step, I went through my resentments, where I was selfish, where I was self-seeking, where I was dishonest, where I was fearful. I went through my sexual inventory. I remember he even gave me an assignment on my perfect relationship, and I wrote it. I wrote it with the idea that I was writing it about a woman, but it's funny looking back on it. My idea of a perfect relationship is the very relationship that I got with God throughout the process in Alcoholics Anonymous. When it came to doing my 5th step with my sponsor, it was the most honest, sacred, freeing experience that I had ever had one-on-one with another person in my entire life. If you haven't experienced it, it's something that you deserve to experience with somebody that you trust. Hopefully, if you're new in here, you feel new in here, you get a sponsor, and hopefully you get a really good one, because that's what I'm a byproduct of, is really great sponsorship. My 5th step, it became apparent that there was a lot about me that was very good. And it also became very apparent that there was a lot of liabilities about me that needed to go. And that's where step 6 and step 7 came in. And that's where it was more about the little boy that I was when I came in Alcoholics Anonymous. There was a lot of things about me that needed to change. And this was the start in 6 and 7 of my growing up process. And being entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character, and then humbly asking Him to remove my shortcomings derived out of my defects of character. I can't tell you that I was entirely ready, or that I even understood the magnitude of what it means to be entirely ready at that point in time when I was originally first going through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 21, 22 years old. But I can definitely tell you that there's been so much that's gone on in the almost 13 years that I've been sober that has changed so much about me as a person, as a man, and we'll get to some of those things. Making a list of all person that we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Most of those people were on my 4-step and on my 5th step. I know a lot of people burn those things. That's not been my experience, because then I wouldn't have known where to go back to revisit when it came time for my A-step. My journey in making direct amends to all people that I had harmed, and my 9-step experience has been a lifelong journey. There's certain people that I had the honor and the privilege of making direct amends with and fixing that relationship right there on the spot. There's certain people that I was thinking about my amends with my father when I was on my way up here, and who's not here anymore. My father passed away almost a year ago to the day. And this is just for, if you've been through any tough stuff in sobriety, I can absolutely relate to that. And moving into step 10 and step 11, I was really thinking about prayer and meditation and self-examination, creating an unshakable foundation for life, like it says in the book. And my father got diagnosed with ALS a year ago. He lost the ability to speak, to walk, to talk, to take care of himself, to clean himself, all overnight, just like that. Just lost it all. And, I remember just thinking about all the opportunities that Alcoholics Anonymous has given me over the years, the 12, 13 years of being a good son. And, in the end of it all, getting to be of service to my father in a way that I never thought that I would be able to, that I would get to, or that I would ever have to. And there's still some tough stuff that goes on in life and sobriety, and things happen. And I was thinking about that on my ride up here. Continue to take personal inventory, and when I was wrong, promptly admitted it. The 10th step is more of my walking around inventory when I'm moving throughout my day. Normally it's in my marriage because I'm married. That's another big blessing that sobriety has bestowed upon me, the ability to trap somebody into putting up with me for years on end. So that's been a blessing. And it's normally in my marriage and my closest relationship and the person that deals with me the most often that I'm able to utilize my 10-step. And really what it is it's a quick spot check for me to take responsibility for my stuff, my relationships with other people. Seeking through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God as I understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. That's a lot to take in if you are new to AA, and nothing that you ought to be concerned with right this second. But what I will tell you is, through prayer and through inventory and through meditation, what I have been gifted throughout this process is peace and calmness and serenity and awareness and the willingness to take responsibility for my crap on a level that I never thought imaginable or even had the desire to attain when I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous. It's less of something that I should sit up here and talk to you about, and more of something that if you're new in here that you deserve to experience for yourself, because that's most of this. Because I could sit up here all day, I could talk to you about my experience drinking, which was horrible, and I could talk to you about what a blessing it is to even survive and be alive and make it to the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, and this process that works when nothing else did. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, try to carry this message to alcoholics and practice these principles in all my affairs. When it comes to working with others, I remember sitting down with my first sponsor ever, and I remember him looking at me and him reminding me of that agreement that I made with him when I first walked into Alcoholics Anonymous, that I was going to turn around and help other guys. And that has been, if you've read Working with Others in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it talks about working with others being the bright spot of our lives, right? To see the light turn on for somebody else, to watch meaning and purpose come into their lives. It's just an experience that you won't want to miss. I remember prior to Alcoholics Anonymous, I always had, when I was drinking, just those thoughts of, why am I this way? Why did this happen? Why did I go through this? Why am I like this? Why do I think this way? Why do I treat other people this way? Why do I treat myself this way? And why am I not like other people in respect to alcohol? I always had those thoughts. And a lot of those whys will get answered upon successful consummation of the process. If you go through this honestly and thoroughly with another person, the biggest recommendation that I could give to anybody along the way out of my own personal experience would be to get a sponsor, work the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous honestly and thoroughly, and that's really what I am. I've been through a lot in the last 13 years, almost 13 years of sobriety, and it has been the greatest ride of my entire life. I remember I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. I would have traded my life to be anybody else in the world when I came in here. And nowadays, especially for the people who know me, I have the coolest life in the world. The majority of my days is spent with a 2-year-old named Alessi, who is my daughter, who, I could sit up here and talk about sobriety being the greatest gift that I've gotten in my entire life. But the short second to that has got to be my relationship with my daughter and fatherhood. And that has been a journey in itself. I have definitely gone from a selfish, inconsiderate, single man in sobriety, young man in sobriety who has gone through a lot of things, to a loyal, honest, caring, thoughtful husband. And it's not just because I'm so great, it's because the sobriety process has just allowed me to go through the changes and the process necessary to become a better person. And that has been the greatest, absolute greatest gift of my life. And if there's any fathers in here, that's what I applaud the most, and one of the greatest gifts that I've gotten in my sobriety. And it's changed a lot about my sobriety through the years that I've become a father. Over the last 2 years and 4 months, my meeting attendance has changed a bit. My service commitments have changed a bit. The hours that I go to meetings have changed a bit, and that's been a monumental change. Marriage has been a monumental change. It's allowed me to focus on a lot of the bigger pictures in life in a more grown-up and mature way. And having a woman that cares enough about me to stick by my side through all the ups and downs of life has been something that I never thought that I wanted, something that I never knew that I deserved, and one of the greatest blessings that sobriety and AA has bestowed upon me. And I will talk a little bit about sponsorship as well. Because not only do I have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful sponsor who taught me a lot of things about love and grace and, you know, what being a man is all about, but also my sponsees and guys that I've had the honor and the privilege of getting to know and walking through the sobriety process that have been just the biggest honor and the biggest blessing, and some of the greatest friends and the most sacred relationships that I never would have thought that I would have gotten throughout this journey. Being here with you guys tonight has taken me just all the way back. All the way back to 2011. I walked into sobriety. I had a trash bag full of clothes. I weighed about 120 pounds, soaking wet. It wouldn't be fair for me, even for an hour, to try to fit in just how much indebted I am to Alcoholics Anonymous, just how much I owe to this process. It's a little hard for me to speak for a full hour these days. But I will tell you this: my life in sobriety looks very much today with my sobriety practices as it did in my first year of sobriety. I still wake up, I still can see to my innermost self that I'm an alcoholic. I still spend the first seconds of my morning on my knees with the first step prayer, the third step prayer, that God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me is that what? That's my whole morning process. Coffee, meditation, the dogs, my daughter, dressing my daughter, going throughout my days, still doing all the same things that I came in here doing. Still showing up and driving an hour and 45 minutes to Doylestown to come be of service because Ron called me for the first time in a few years and asked me to be here. I'm very, very lucky and very fortunate that this was the outcome of my life. Because if you drank the way that I did, there's a lot of different places that I could have been in. There's a lot of ways that this could have ended. And with the good life and sobriety, it just didn't have to be one of them. You know, I'll leave you guys with this. I was watching a talk on Father Martin on the way up here. And it was a talk all about the 12 Steps to Alcoholics Anonymous. And at the end of it all, he was talking about how good is often the enemy of the best, and that alcoholics need the very best. And he said something about margarine may cover the bread, but it sure ain't butter. And he said, I like butter, and I hope you do too. And that resonated very, 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 very well with me at the end. And that's what I feel like I've gotten in Alcoholics Anonymous. Like I'm such a grateful customer of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've just been given the very best, the absolute best. I don't want to talk too much, and I don't want to overstay my welcome, but I very, very much appreciate you guys even being here tonight, allowing me the opportunity to be of service, allowing me to speak. Ron, thank you very much, and that's all I got. Thanks for letting me share.
First and foremost, I want to thank Jordan for coming out here tonight and delivering an incredible message of hope and recovery to our group here. A couple quick announcements. And we'll wrap up the meeting here. Let's see. Again, the food and the fellowship for this group always starts at 8 o'clock. So again, feel free to come here early and join us. If you do want to get involved with this group, we always have service positions available. If you want to help us out with service commitments, we have service commitments in hospitals and institutions through this group. We have a standing commitment on Sunday nights that we go up to Quakertown for. So if that's something you'd be interested in, is going out and helping to deliver a message of hope and recovery to the sick and suffering, you can see me, see Ron, see any home group member after the meeting if you're interested in doing that. There is always the meeting after the meeting, so I always say if you're out there and if you're new or if you're struggling or if you've been coming around for a while and it's just not working, hang out with us after the meeting. We'll all be hanging out here. If you want to help us out with some service work right after the meeting, we could always use some help putting away the chairs. We put away these chairs out on the floor on the front here and along the sides. The ones in the back there by the table stay exactly where they are. It is customary for us to thank our speakers as they come here on their own time and expense to share their message with us. So we usually form a line in the front here and we thank our speakers personally. do want to thank everybody for helping out with the group tonight, everybody that helped to set up. Again, Jason, who does our YouTube, all of our greeters, our readers. Thanks to Ms. Kay in the back there for taking care of the kitchen. And one more time, let's thank our speaker. And if you do care to join us, we have a nice way of closing down the meeting. We'll close down the meeting here with a brief moment of silence for the still sick and suffering alcoholic inside and outside of these rooms, followed by our Lord's Prayer. Our Father,
Amen.